This podcast was brought to you by the good people at Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial right now at audibletrial.com/nothingbutstatic. Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This episode, which is 24 hours since the last one, Chris. It's a long time. We're talking dugout. We're talking out.
Should I say what it was about, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, that is generally what we do.
Actually, I want to say this now in case I forget. Have you got the trivia open?
I've got some trivia open.
Please tell me it says, when Doug says, "Are you ready for this?" It is a reference to the MC Hammer song, "Can't Touch This."
Does not say that.
No, what does he say? He says something like that. "You all ready for this?" Yeah, he says something like, that is "Can't Touch This," isn't it? "You all ready for this?" No,
that's "You Can't Touch This." You're thinking of the song from Space Jam.
No, wait. No, wait, what?
You're mixing up two songs, my friend.
Oh, I am. Yeah, you're right.
You're mixing up. Yeah, ready for this?
Yeah.
That one, whatever that one is. I know it's in Space
So does
Jam.
it say it's a reference to that?
No.
I forget MC Hammer then, I apologise.
Doesn't seem to be.
My song's confused. Oh, okay, fine. I bet it's got Luigi in it. Right. So, this episode is about Doug, our pal Doug. So, Connie and Stephen are eating some fry bits, chatting about how it's a nice calm day and nothing's going down. Never a good thing to say in a TV show. Doug appears.
How about in real life? Okay, let's test the theory. Let's test the theory right now.
Don't do it, Dan. Don't jinx it.
Just saying, this podcast so far is really sort of quiet, normal, calm. Nothing unusual has happened as of yet. Carry on.
Now I'm going to be shit.
No, let's just see what happens. Let's test the theory. Does it work in real life or is it just a TV thing?
Doug reveals that he is a security guard, and in quite the U-turn on his parenting, thoughts and his over worries about the health and safety of Connie, invites her to a stakeout. They go to the stakeout.
To be fair, that was always more her mother than her father.
Yeah. No, I know.
They never really set up Doug as much of anything. In fact, he wasn't really a big part of those storylines, was he? It was more about Connie's relationship with her mother.
That's fair. So they go to the stakeout and end up chasing this hidden, mysterious being throughout the fairground. They end up getting, hit by bulls. They end up on hyperspace, which is one of those rides where you stick to the sides. They end up playing about, and throughout there's themes of Doug's kind of not feeling like his job is worth anything, and then in the end they find the big scary thing that's there, and it's Onion. At this point, I'm getting really grumpy and mad at Cartoon Network. I'll get to that. I'll get to it now because they it feels like it can't be Onion, and then they explain why they think it is Onion, and it concludes it's Onion. Connie and her dad have a nice moment, and I'm really mad at Cartoon Network because I'm like, please don't let it be Onion, because if it's Onion, then this isn't the start of anything. And I know it sounds like I'm moaning, and I know that I'm just grumbly, but as stupid as it sounds, a bomb uses up 2.5 weeks worth of content in 1 week. And Dan and I have jobs and partners, and we spend a lot of our time recording podcasts, and I was getting really grouchy. I'm sat there really enjoying the episode. It's a nice fun episode. I don't know if there's a great deal to say on it, but it's a nice fun episode. But I'm sat there just like, fucking Cartoon Network. If it's not going to be a bomb, don't promote it as a bomb. What's the point? Using up 2.5 weeks worth of content in 1 week just because you want to blast out episodes with your stupid schedule. And I'm like, please don't let it be Onion. Because Onion seemingly is pointing and Like, clearly Onion is not saying you were chasing me. He's saying I've seen something. Then we see shadows of two alien, weird-looking creatures, and it is revealed that it wasn't Onion, or at least that's the impression I get. And I was like, oh, good. Okay, cool, fine. I felt much better about Cartoon Network, and I was less grumbly and grumpy about that, and that's my roundup.
Yeah, no, this is that moment, that screenshot with those two shadows is well, the problem is I do kind of wish there'd been so with this one, I'm pretty sure they put all 5 episodes out at the start of the week via the app, so people got to just blast through these, which is a shame, because I would have loved one episode going out and the speculation as to, you know, what exactly
that is.
Those shapes are. Interestingly as well, if you know, when they're moving around the park, Funland, there's a moment when there's something on the roof above them, and you see sort of a shadowy outline. Its shape, or at least the sort of top of it, sort of what would be, if it was a humanoid figure, its head matches the smaller of the two shapes that we see behind Onion later in the episode.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
that's a cool moment, but why is Connie's dad allowing Onion to just continue? No, I've caught you. Don't do it again. Has your lesson been learned? Yep, cool. I'm just going to leave you in the fucking street. Like, stay here. Like, we're going to drive off. You stay here.
Yeah, that's what
Give
baffles me. That is like why Onion doesn't just get in the car with them and leave.
But it leads to a cool shot. I thought this episode was a lot of fun. Again, there's not much. The Doug stuff, I suppose we could talk about. There's obviously stuff to talk about. We will find stuff. But, like, I'm just watching this episode having a good time. It was good. It was nice to see Connie's dad. I thought that setting was quite cool. I like episodes that aren't, where they manage to do a story that feels quite, you know, feels like they're running from an alien when they're not. Like, I think that's quite cool when shows like this do that. As I said before, there were some random jokes in it that were quite entertaining. Ronaldo's now got a rash, which is bizarre.
Yeah, that would I put. It's like the first line of the episode, isn't it? If Steven's like, "Yeah, thanks, Petey, for the fry bits," and tell Ronaldo I hope he gets better from his weird rash or something like that. And I'm just like, what? What?
That's weird.
Like, you know what it felt like? It felt like the writers were like putting the storyboards together. And they were like, Steven should say something to Petey, but we can't have him just say thanks for the fry bits, because that's really generic and boring, and we can do something better with that. And someone maybe says about Ronaldo, like, it's kind of silly, but we'll put it in there as like a placeholder until we think of something that really fits. And you know, is a joke, and isn't just a really weird non sequitur. Instead, though, they never went back and changed it, and before they knew it, it was on television.
Yeah, they were like, oh shit, Ronaldo's got an STI.
Yeah. Wow, that's a leap.
Obviously doesn't have to be an STI, could be any type of rash.
Yeah, but that's where your brain went, Chris. So let's explore. What do we think's happened there then? What's the story?
I think he
honestly, I hope that is what it is, because I just, you know, let's just be on the pure basis that I like.
Horrific to say.
I'm just saying, like, you know, it's just nice to know Ronaldo's getting laid. That's what I was getting to.
Well, where I went was Ronaldo's not being able to get his girlfriend back, so he is just sleeping around the town.
Wow.
And he's picked up something. This is dark. Let's move on from Ronaldo. I'm sure it's just a regular rash. Actually, you know what? Fuck them. They did this. They put that line in. No. They put a line in about how Ronaldo's got a rash. What?
Well, yeah. What is left for us to do, Chris, but speculate about this rash?
Yeah, and if you're speculating about a rash, that's where a lot of people's minds would go. So, no, they did that.
Yeah.
I thought it was very fun. I thought the Doug plot was quite sweet and quite nicely done. Very believable. I feel. Like I believed that I was engaged in it. I think it does raise a few questions of just how much do they know. Like, because when he kind of went mutants and homeworld and monster, I was like, okay, cool. He's like, shit, this stuff that she's doing with them is really dangerous.
There's two ways you can interpret that.
And then he just changes the batteries.
See, there's two ways you can interpret that, because I thought that for a second, and then I went, actually, no, it's not like, oh, this witch. It's like, in my life, like, in my line of work, like, I've bumped into this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it was more like, how have I, security guard who mostly has to deal with moving teenagers along that are loitering, how is my night come to monsters and mutants?
Yeah, I think
and that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But when he first starts saying it, before he then changes the batteries, I was like, oh, has he realised just what Connie and Stephen are doing? And I was like, oh, maybe that's going to get explored. And it just isn't. I just like I kind of want it cleared up. Do they know the full extent of things?
I think they do
not?
now. Yeah. I think that was the agreement that Connie made with her mother at the end of that previous episode, and I'd like to think they honoured that.
Yeah, the episode when they're at Nightmare Hospital, whatever it was called. But would you, with the best, as much as they're confident in her abilities, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to take karate lessons. Oh, I don't want you to take karate lessons. Oh, I really want to take them. Okay, take them. I'm taking them. Okay, fine. We trust you. They're getting a bit violent. Okay, yeah, well, that's fine. We trust you. I'm fighting aliens and can die. That I'm not sure about these karate lessons. Now.
That analogy works great if it were not for Nightmare Hospital, because if to apply that analogy to the show, it would be, I'd like to take karate lessons. I'm not sure about the karate lessons. Come on, let me take lessons. Okay, you take the lessons, but nothing else. Then we're being attacked by ninjas. Don't worry, I'm going to save you with my karate in front of you, because that's what happens in Nightmare Hospital, isn't it? That all those mutant things come out, and it's Connie that saves the day, and her mum gets to literally witness Connie, vanquish these things and look after herself. So it's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Because she's had the context of witnessing Connie do heroics. It's not just, do you know what I mean? Like, Connie has literally saved her life and the lives of anyone in that hospital, I suppose.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
No, I'm just thinking it through. I think, yeah, you're right. And then my mind, sometimes your mind wanders, and you're like, can I make this link? I can't make it link without explaining that my mind's like, okay, say your point again, and I'll tell you what I was honestly thinking at that time. And,
which point?
See if the jump between your subject and mine is justified. So say what you said again, and I will give you genuinely what I was thinking.
I think I was saying, so I was saying that Connie's mum has witnessed Connie saving the day, which makes it more justifiable and a little bit different to the analogy you used about learning karate and then the mum finding out he's fighting mutants.
How long do you think it was before Hermione found her parents and took the spell off of them so they knew who she was again?
About a day.
You can see the link, but that's why I didn't sound convinced, because I was like, I can't justify asking that question.
No, I reckon almost like the next day. Like, she got a nap. She they all slept in the castle that night. The next day, she sort of like got up, had breakfast, put on a travelling cloak.
She was like, "No, Ron, you bury your brother. I'm off to find my parents."
Well, yeah, that's reasonable. Like,
no, it is reasonable.
Her parents have been trapped in Australia for however long. Spoilers for fan of Harry Potter, by the way.
I think they sorted some stuff out first. I don't reckon it was the next day. I reckon it was like a few days later. I think because otherwise she's got to be reunited with them and then go and address everything that's happened. So I think she waited a bit, they got settled, and then she went and got them.
I don't know how you justify that. She's not seen them in a year. They've been in Australia not knowing she exists. She doesn't know where they are or whether they were found. They could be, for all she knows, Voldemort found them and killed them.
God, this is why it should be a TV show, because that didn't really get explored in the books that much. There was that line where the sort of Hermione and Ron talk about what they've given up to help Harry.
Yes.
But there was never, that didn't get explored that much. If you did a TV show, you could have a whole episode where Hermione is dealing with that. That would be cool.
I think the guys who did Avatar: The Last Airbender and Rebecca Sugar should get together. Harry Potter TV show. Animated.
That would be. You know what? I almost don't. It could be another. I want Harry Potter to exist in some form now that all 7 books are out there. I think the films were hindered by the fact that the books hadn't been finished, and I would just like to see...
I think the films were hindered by the terrible screenwriting involved.
With that too. I would like to see a version of Harry Potter now that we have these 7. I don't want any of the extra shit, but these 7 books, like, I just want to see them in a form. Animated, TV, whatever.
I want animated. I think it can be.
I know you do,
I think
but
it can be explored more interestingly in animated, because then you've not got to worry about budget.
But the money, mate. I mean, $1 billion for Lord of the Rings TV show. Like, the money exists now. Game of Thrones was like a movie. The last series. I think the money exists to do it.
But that Game of Thrones started with very little money being put into it, and then when it got popular, they put a bunch of money into it. You know, I was watching
Harry Potter. Look at how much Amazon are ploughing into Lord of the Rings. Like,
but a lot of people in the industry think that's very risky and dangerous what their Amazon are doing now. And I can't disagree with that, because you just don't know. You just don't know.
I suppose, but I think Harry Potter's a more safe bet than Lord of the Rings, to be honest.
I don't know. Fantastic Beasts hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. So, from Warner Brothers' perspective, it's you're looking at maybe a fading franchise. You know, potentially, you don't know.
Fair point. Can't argue with that. What did you think of the Doug plot?
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I think it's really nice that we've had stories with Connie's parents, and they didn't really. They matched, but only in sort of that they were the inverse of each other, really. You know, the plot we had with Connie's mother was that she couldn't. She didn't know. Connie's life was secret from her, and because she couldn't handle that. And then she witnessed Connie saving the day, and her mind was sort of shifted, and their relationship, which was always a bit strained due to the clearly from the impression I got was it was strained due to the amount of lies being told constantly, and she finally was like, well, if you be honest with us, then we can have this, we can make this work. And then you look at this episode, and it's been accepted that Connie is doing that, and the story is that her dad almost feels inadequate.
It's a really interesting story.
So the revelation that Connie is also saving lives and working with the gems has like made him feel worse, because so the plot isn't about him not accepting what she's doing. The plot is about him almost being a little jealous of what she's doing, because Mrs. Maheshwaran is a nurse or a doctor or surgeon. I can't remember exactly her. No, she's not a nurse. She's a doctor.
She's a doctor.
So she's Dr. Maheshwaran, not Mrs. I don't. Yeah. So she's got obviously she saves lives.
Made references like in the last episode where she was late. She made references to her patient. She just very much spoke as if she was a doctor, not a nurse. So I'm pretty sure she's a doctor.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't quite remember. What the show had specifically said. No, she's a doctor. She's a doctor. So she saves lives. They established that in this episode, and I think you would feel a bit inadequate, wouldn't you, if your daughter's saving the world from alien invaders, your wife's saving lives daily at a hospital, and you're just moving kids along that are loitering. So to explore that, but also by teaming it up with, by putting it in a world where we've also had the story with Connie's mother, that improves it, in my opinion, because we've gone from a parent that doesn't accept it to a parent that is almost jealous of it, and that's again, it's sort of like the antithesis of the other story, and I think it's nice that we're not getting the same story twice, where he's all... I'll be honest with you, when you sort of started talking about shouldn't he be a little bit afraid for her and stuff, I was just thinking, oh God, I hope not, because we did that plot. We've now done that. I wanted something different, and the idea of a parent feeling inadequate next to their kid is actually really interesting, and I don't recall another time I've seen that. I mean, I know they sometimes hint at that with Greg, but it's usually that Greg feels inadequate next to the gems because there's an area of his son's life that he's not ideally suited to parent at. So when gem stuff happens, Greg sort of has to, bow out and say, you need to talk to the gems about this, which, must hurt as a parent to know you're not equipped to fully look after your kid or to fully handle the questions of your kid. So with Greg, it tends not to be inadequacy to the son, but more inadequacy as a parent to the son in relation to the character's other, guardian figures. So I don't think we've ever had this plot in this show, and I think that's a really nice, simple way to do it, while also clearly setting up some sort of overall plot that's going to be going over the next couple of episodes at the end with with those shadows. So I think it works really well. I think it's a nice, fun episode. If it hadn't been in a bomb, and the conclusion had just been that it was Onion, it would have been a really good towny episode where we got to finally get a bit better sort of idea of what Connie's dad is like, and get a little bit of character development from him. They found a way to do that, plus set up the plot that you presume is going to go through the next couple episodes of this bomb, which is who are these mysterious figures and why are they in Beach City. So the fact they came up with a plot that can do that they could use to sort of have their cake and eat it too, which is a phrase I know I use a lot on this podcast, but the show often gets to do multiple things at once, where other shows wouldn't be able to. And that's a phrase that usually indicates that you can't do all of the things you want. But in this case, often in the case of this show, they do get to do everything, and it's frustratingly genius because so few shows get to achieve this. But yeah, no, I think this is a really solid episode, and it could have worked outside of a bomb, minus that last scene.
Because outside of the bomb, all my frustration. Outside of the bomb, if it's Onion, I think that's fine.
Yeah, but it's perfectly reasonable explanation, because then it solidifies that point as well. That no, his life is just chasing kids around. That's what we set up. That's the payoff. The reveal is it isn't anything exciting. He just thought it might be. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of sad and tragic in its own way. That Connie's with him and he suddenly thinks he's got something interesting to do, and it's just them running around Funland for a few hours, and no actual sort of gemmy payoff. Did a part of you think that we were going to see a gem monster when we started to run around the park chasing after something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I think actually it would have been really, outside of a bomb, it would have been even more effective, because you do think you would assume, I think it was a monster, and then when it's actually Onion and he actually is just chasing kids around, like you say, there's a real interesting payoff and depth to that. So yeah, I think this was great. I think this, you kind of, like you say, you got the best of both worlds there. And it sets up quite nicely. I mean, the only kind of bomb complaint is this should have been the first episode of the bomb, not Lion for straight alternative ending.
I would agree with that. Any theories on the mysterious shadowy figures?
No, I didn't get. We watched pretty close to recording, so I didn't necessarily feel I could sit and pause. One of them, the one on the, the smaller one of the two, I wouldn't know. It would be my right. Would that be the one on the right of the screen. Yeah, of course it would. I'm an idiot. Looked a bit like they had metal hanging. It looked a bit Peridotty, and when she had a contraption. Do you see what I mean? It looked like there was a suit of some kind or something. It was just quite a jaggedy shadow. So maybe armor. That's what I'm looking for. It looked like maybe they were wearing some kind of armor. Mm-hmm. Are they, Dan?
I mean, I could certainly see how someone would look at that and see it as limb enhancers, because it's got. I've got the screen grab in front of me now. What you can see in this shot, so I'm not describing anything spoilery here, I'm simply describing what's in front of me. Looks like there's a lighter shadow, and then inside of it, floating thicker shadow, which you could assume is the lighter shadow is the force fieldy bit that holds. Remember that on Peridot's limb enhancers, she had fingers that sort of floated.
Yeah.
You could sort of think, I wonder if the shadow of that showed a force field making those floating fingers float. You could wonder if that would come up in a shadow, where the light is distorted slightly more. That's not what I saw when I saw this figure. If you take a look back at it, my honest to God first thought, and this is 100% what I was thinking, was I thought it looked surprisingly insectoid. It has there's two things sticking out at the top that look like they could be antennas. And the things coming off it look like they could be sort of butterfly wings or moth wings or something in that vein.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I found that one looked quite insectoid. The other one, very sort of squared off, very, very blocky, hard to really get a gauge on the shape of whatever that being is. Certainly much bigger than the other, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot. So. That's what I was sort of looking at. I found.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it again. But yeah, I'm excited. I was really like, oh, cool. Like we're off. It felt like we were going somewhere. And I'd love to get comments below. Like it's interesting from the point of view where we're recording this. The last bomb we did is now airing, and I think it feels slightly unfair to always judge the bombs on how they fit as bombs, but they're promoted that way, and they're in some cases, like the last one, designed that way. So I think it is fair to do that.
Yeah, Cartoon Network promotes them that way, that's for sure. Whether they were designed that way in the production, I don't know.
It feels like the last one was.
No, the last one certainly. This one I'm less confident in.
Yeah, I completely agree, and this could easily be because again, this is what you got here is a episode essentially unconnected with a slight tease at the end. Now that feels, because I doubt Doug is going to be a big part of this bomb going forward. Like I'm assuming you just have whatever the creatures were in the gem's life going forward. So it's a real compliment to the episode that they did the Doug stuff and it was engaging and done well. But that notion of an episode essentially disconnected to it and then a tease at the end, that's way more in line with building to your series finale or your series finale event than it is with being the start of a bomb as they've come to be seen. Making me definitely think it was not, intended that way.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair. So obviously, in terms of trivia, one of the pieces of trivia is that, the beings that were seen at the end, this would arguably be their first appearance, which is not really trivia so much as it is spoilers, so I won't be reading that one. The disguises that they wear are pretty cool. One of them is obviously a reference, as you've already pointed out, Chris, to Mario. Or Luigi. One or the other. Mustache and hat.
Well, he's got a green hat, so it's Luigi, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you could. It's the mustache is more of a Mario length. So yeah, 100%. He's wearing a red shirt too, so he's sort of a weird reference to both at once because he's red and blue in the clothes is Mario's colors, isn't it? So it's the green hat you could argue is a Luigi thing. And when he puts it on, it plays a few bars of music that is Mario-y or directly ripped from Mario. It's hard to say. I tried listening back to it to see if I could figure out if it was from a specific level I remember or anything like that. I couldn't quite place it, but it is very chiptuney, very sort of 16-bit sort of Mario. Yeah, 100%. But equally, and I caught this on my original watch, and it's good to see this is confirmed in the trivia here. Connie's outfit is based on Carmen Sandiego from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the educational games from I guess the 90s.
Oh, cool.
And when she apparently puts on that and sort of says her name, there's a bit of music from that game or similar music playing underneath, which is pretty neat.
Nice touches.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. I miss those. Actually, I wonder if those games hold up, the Carmen Sandiego ones. I bet they don't. I bet they're terrible. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the games, I'm afraid.
Sonic also referenced when the gumballs fall over and Steven floats Connie over them. It's reminiscent of how Tails carried Sonic when they had to do their sort of. So in the games, there's some obstacles that Tails can get Sonic over.
Yeah.
So Tails sort of flies over like a canyon, holding Sonic from sort of the neck and dangling below, and that's exactly how Steven gets Connie over the gumballs in this, which I think is a really neat little visual gag. There's two posters in the background in one of the scenes. One of them is for Tiger, Millionaire, and Pepper Puma. It's a hand-drawn one, clearly by Steven. And then there's another one that's been clearly hand-drawn by Buck Dewey that says, "Vote for my dad." And it's a picture, it's just a hand-drawn picture of Mayor Dewey and stuff. It's kind of cute.
Yeah, that's quite cute.
In the background, we also see the game that they played to win Connie's Alien. She was throwing the balls on the rings in that in the what was that episode called again? With the short you scored. Oh,
Too Short to Ride.
Too Short to Ride. Thank you. Yes. from that episode. That appears in the background. They're at Funland. It makes sense they would reuse the location. Nice that it's there, though. Bit of consistency. And then the final thing is my favourite part of any trivia session, Chris. It's a segment of all of its own, Chris. And it almost feels like it needs a theme tune now. We do it so often. But I don't think it's right for me to steal your theme tune thunder from Fringe Observers. Because for those who don't know, our other podcast that's now finished, Fringe Observers, we used to do Dan's quote of the week, and every week Chris would make up on the spot a song. But maybe I'll get.
I'm happy to do it. What kind of thing is it? And then I'll give you a little theme tune.
It's my favourite segment, Chris. Cars exist.
Oh, okay. Cars exist.
Hi, welcome to Cars Exist. This week, we'll be talking about Doug's patrol car, which resembles a 1983 Nissan Sunny EX Saloon.
Nice. There you go.
Cars exist. Like that's the end of the segment.
Cars exist.
There you
go. No, it wouldn't be. No, it's not. No, I can't tell. Yeah.
You can't tell what?
Sorry, I have a story that I just can't tell on the podcast on YouTube that involves car noises. Yeah, you shouldn't have said this podcast because now you're going to make me tell the story, and I don't think I can. And yeah. You shouldn't have said this podcast is fine and going without any hitches because now we're in an awkward position where you're going to want me to tell a story. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
What, you just pausing and letting my rambling play out until eventually I tell the story? What are you hoping for here? So my friend,
yes,
my friend on a night out, genuinely my friend. I just feel bad for telling this story, and it's quite rude as well, and I apologise. My friend found himself the morning after a night out in an awkward situation where he'd met someone and been quite intimate with them the night before, and he was phoning them. Arguably, this is responsible. He was phoning them, and it was the single most awkward conversation I've ever witnessed another human make, where he basically phoned her and was like, "Oh, yeah, had a great time. Did we use protection?" And then she said yes, and he went, "We did. Okay, cool." So he'd found out what he needed to know, and then he had to try and get out of the conversation. And for some reason, he went, "Anyway, I better go. We were in the middle of we were stood in the street, and he went, "Anyway, I better go. I'm pulling into traffic." And then he looked at my friend Matt as if to say, "Come on, help me out here." So Matt just went, like, well, you're not in the middle of a Formula One race, are you, mate? Like, so me and my friend are making car noises while our other friend is trying to get out of an awkward morning after phone call. So there you go.
Oh dear Lord! Right. On that note, that is.
Don't always wear protection, kids.
No, just be mindful of whether you did or didn't, so you remember in the morning, so you have to make the call.
Yeah, ideally don't well, I don't know, I've never lived that kind of life, Dan. So who knows.
Anyway, oh man, I'm so glad that all it took was for me to be silent for a couple minutes for you to tell the story, because I really wanted to know.
Otherwise people would just, I don't want you in the comments to just get what was Chris's car story. It's not that bad, is it? It's just
no, it's fine. I don't know, but it's one of those things where you shot yourself in the foot because you referenced that you'd had a brief moment where you thought about it. If you genuinely wanted to not tell the story, just don't reference it at all. I wouldn't have known any different. The listeners wouldn't have known any different. You dug that hole for yourself.
At the end of the day, it's an embarrassing story for my mate, not me. This podcast isn't the place I think of to tell morning after sex stories. So.
I mean, someone did make fun of us the other day. They were like, "Why is your podcast always listed as explicit on SteamUS?" I'm just like, well, iTunes are really funny. iTunes are really funny about swearing on a podcast that isn't listed as explicit, and we do swear. So I just figured cover ourselves and just list them all that way and not worry about it.
I am, and for anyone listening, like, with the last segment in mind, I do. It's a really fine line between, in an ideal world, we wouldn't go on a tangent like that on this podcast, and we wouldn't swear. Because, not so much because, like, just because anyone can have access to it. So you could, it's because of YouTube. So you could, knowing that, you know, someone younger could watch this show and potentially stumble across this. I'm very aware that we should swear less, and I genuinely apologise for when we swear and go on tangents like that. But it's a very fine line between the minute we're doing an episode and in my head I'm going, don't swear, don't swear, don't swear. There's something quite unnatural about the conversation.
Yeah.
So it comes out more easily than it should, because we're so determined to just have this be an honest and real conversation, which sometimes involves swearing, because Dan and I, as people, swear quite a bit. So I do apologise for that, and I promise it is something we will try and get better at, or I'm trying to get better at and be more aware of when doing this podcast in particular.
Whereas
you know,
I
the
couldn't
other
fucking
one,
give a shit.
Fuck it.
We both did the same gag. We are terrible.
We're awful people.
We are the worst. Anyway, I guess that's everything.
Yeah.
I feel like we've petered out, but it's early days. But let's
what's the next episode? It's not that early, is it? That's nearly 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. That's considering this podcast we used to be 10 minutes an episode. 40 seems quite a lot
Yeah.
now. You say it like that way. The next episode,
and it's also we have this rule of like between 30 and 40. We're never 30. We're never at the 30 end of that. So
no, we're not. And then more, it's not so much a rule like it was on Fringe Observers, where we were roughly always in it. It's more like a guide that we often throw out the window.
Yes.
The next episode is called The Good Laws.
Okay, cool.
The Good Laws. Any thoughts on what that might be based on the title?
Lars is one of the shadows. He's now a bad guy.
Boom.
No, I don't know.
Theory confirmed. All right, cool. Well, go on.
Lars or The Good Lars?
The Good Laws.
No, I've no theory. My theory is it's a Lars episode.
It's a good theory. Strong theory. You've been on Wikipedia
Cheers,
again,
man.
my friend.
Cheers, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I guess, everything for this week.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, cool. I've been Dan Doolan. I inadvertently stumbled into an awkward ending because I don't know how to end it. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you tomorrow, as we discuss The Good Laws.
Cool. Stop in there. I mean, we've got to be careful of copyright, surely. Actually, no, that's just us doing a version. That's fine, unlike last week.
Yeah.
You actually played the damn thing.
Yeah, did. Oh, well, no, fuck it. We can't be copyrighted. We can't be copyright infringement. We're not fucking monetized.
Yeah.
YouTube What other copyright songs can I play?
Can I just say, and also we're reviewing it. Doug theme tune, great theme tune.
It's up there with some of the best of them. That and DuckTales.
Yeah. Keenan and Kel.
Oh my god, that was such a good theme tune.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes, obviously. You know the one I always thought was pretty shitty because it just didn't really do a lot for the show.
What?
Sabrina's.
Yeah.
Just music.
Do you remember Round the Twist? That's a pretty epic one.
Do you ever? Oh no, have you felt like this?
Ever felt like this?
When strange things
happening. You
going round the twist. And then there's a whole bit where it's like, have you heard the word about the bird and the spider?
Oh yeah,
Wriggled,
yeah.
Jiggled inside her. Have you ever? And for those of you who don't know, Round the Twist was like a kids show made in the UK, and our drama at that point for adults was badly funded and terrible in this country. Kids shows were so much worse.
I'm gonna be bold here, Dan. With no facts to back me up and not 100% confidence, I'm gonna say it wasn't made in the UK.
Might have been made in like Wales or something.
No, I think it was Australian.
Was Round the Twist Australian?
I think it was. You're gonna have to look it up now. This is how we end this podcast. But I swear, I think it's Australian.
You know what? Now I'm thinking about it, that makes sense. I'm visualizing the dad from that family. He looked Australian. Do you know what I mean? He had an Australian look to him. I can't explain it. He just looked Australian. Oh my god, you're right, Australia.
It was Australian. Yeah, I thought so.
Well done. Well done. I just remember it being a bit shit, so therefore I remember it being British.
It would have been so much better if we hadn't done the after the I meant that quite genuinely, after the swearing stuff. If we hadn't have made the obvious joke and had been like, yeah, we will try and do better. And then when I went, I'm pretty sure Round the Twist is Australian, you just went, oh, fuck off, is it?
No, we both went for the obvious joke because we're petty and children and can't resist. Yeah. Anywho, that had a pretty good theme tune. If you don't know what that is, Google it, YouTube it. It's good. It's a good theme tune for a TV show, even though the show was not good.
Yeah.
Gadget Boy had a good theme tune.
I don't remember that.
Gadget Boy and Heather. Yeah, it's a good one.
A Top Cat.
Oh, Top Cat had a great theme.
Leader of the gang.
Yeah, he's the most tip-top Top Cat. That's a great one.
Obviously, Steven Universe.
Does have a good theme tune.
Best when sung by Pearl Jam.
No. We're ending it now.
Ending it now.
Ending it now.
Are the crystal gems.